And now switching to a few operational updates on the temporary pier, or the joint logistics over-the-shore capability that is being used to surge humanitarian assistance into Gaza. In the past 7 days, U.S. Central Command delivered more than 4,500 metric tons, or 10 million pounds of aid to the marshalling yard in Gaza, which works out to approximately 1.5 million pounds per day. For historical context, following the devastating tsunami in 2011, DoD delivered about 3 million pounds of aid to Japan over approximately 2 months. So just again, for context, in the last week, the temporary pier alone almost tripled that volume. Additionally, the pier provided the second highest volume of aid from any entry point into Gaza this past week. In total, since May 17th, Central Command has assisted in the delivery of more than 8,831 metric tons, or approximately 19.4 million pounds of humanitarian aid to the shore for onward distribution by humanitarian organizations. Now, due to high sea states expected this weekend, Central Command has removed the temporary pier from its anchored position in Gaza and will tow it back to Ashdod, Israel. As always, the safety of our service members is a top priority, and temporarily relocating the pier will prevent potential structural damage that could be caused by the heightened sea state. U.S. Central Command will continue to provide updates on the status of the temporary pier, as will we from this podium.
There are reports that that pier, once it gets towed into Ashdod, is not going to go back because of the backlog in shipments. Is that correct?
I wouldn't say that's correct in terms of the backlog of shipments. There is a need for more aid. I think what you're referring to is in Cyprus. We do need more aid to come into Cyprus. We are pretty close to full on the marshalling yard in terms of how much aid is there. Mentioned at the top, this pier has provided the second most volume of aid over all the other crossings in Gaza. So we've certainly seen its capability. We've seen the importance of what it can do. As high sea states are impacting the operability of the pier, that's why it's being removed. When the commander decides that it is the right time to reinstall that pier, we'll keep you updated on that.
So it may not go back.
As of right now, the intention is to continue to get aid into Gaza by any means necessary. That includes the pier, airdrops, and of course, as we've always said with the pier, it is meant to be temporary. It is not the long-term solution or solve for land routes. We know that's the most effective way in, but that's really a decision that the commander will make as we continue to evaluate the high sea states. But I don't have a date of when the pier would be reinstalled.
You don't have a date?
I don't right now. The commander will continue to assess the sea states over the weekend. That could lead into next week. So we're going to continue to monitor the environmental and weather factors. And once we have a better update, we'll certainly provide that.
So on a separate subject, the disintegration of this Russian satellite, is there any indication that satellite came apart as a result of some kind of Russian anti-satellite test?
As of right now, we're still evaluating why this satellite came apart. Satellite breakups can result from a variety of different cases, but right now we just don't have an assessment of what broke this one apart, which I believe happened on June 26th. Okay. Tara?
Thanks, Sabrina. Back to the pier. The marshalling yard is almost full, and it doesn't seem like any delivery trucks are going to take that aid. So would putting the pier back in place be contingent upon there actually being room to put more aid? Because how could you move aid if you don't have anywhere to put it?
Yes, I mean, of course. If there's not enough room on the marshalling yard, then it doesn't make sense to put our men and women out there when there's nothing to move. There is still room. I don't want to give the impression that it's at capacity. It is certainly full. But we do need to see that marshalling yard open up to allow for aid groups to continue that distribution so that we can get more aid in as we get it from Cyprus.
So is there anything that the U.S. can do to help get that aid moving out of the marshalling yard?
So that's something that we've been having ongoing conversations with the WFP, and by we, I should say the larger broader we. It's an interagency effort that's really being spearheaded by USAID. So for more updates on those conversations, I'd refer you to them to speak to how those conversations are going with WFP. But we all know that this is a priority. We want to see distribution pick back up. We want to see aid delivered to the people that need it most. We certainly know and understand and are monitoring the dire humanitarian situation on the ground. So we certainly want to see that distribution back up.
The coordination cell that the U.S. has a role in to help with the convoys. What's going on there as far as how U.S. officials, U.S. military officials are working with IDF to maybe try and streamline communications between the IDF and the aid groups?
Well, that's part of what the deconfliction cells do. We have one in Cyprus and one in Israel. They are there to help with the distribution of aid. It's more how groups, NGOs, WFP also plugs into that. I don't want to speak on behalf of those groups and USAID in particular, but right now there is good communication between our military personnel in those deconfliction cells and the IDF. Phil.
Hey, so just to clarify really quick, and then I have a question.
Sure.
So is the marshalling area full or not?
I wouldn't say it's at capacity. There's still some room there, but it's I would say majority is pretty full right now.
And then one question on the pier. 6 weeks ago today, the pier began operating, if my math is right, and it's been down for roughly 2.5 weeks. Has the pier lived up to its expectations?
I would say it certainly has, Oren. I mean, just it might have been operating for 6 weeks, and during that time, yes, we have had periods of time where we've had to pull it offline because of weather. We've had periods of time where we've had to do repairs. But as I mentioned in my topper, since May 17th, we've had over 19 million pounds of aid delivered to the shore in Gaza. That is, I'd say, a great success. And you have to remember that at the beginning of this year, in the State of the Union, the president directed this maritime corridor be established. And I think it has been successful because at the end of the day, not enough aid is getting into the people of Gaza. This is meant to be an additive measure. This is not meant to be the only route where aid can get in. And we've been able to deliver 19 million pounds. And yes, there is still aid that is sitting in that marshalling area awaiting further distribution. We're working with groups to make sure that happens. But I would say that our men and women in uniform have done really heroic work to get that aid to the people that need it most. Carla.
I just have a follow-up.
Sure.
You talked about how it was a success, but you've also said that those, 19 million pounds, they haven't reached the people. So how is that defined as success?
Well, not all of them, but you have to remember, Carla, that in terms of the distribution efforts, that is not what the United States or United States military is doing. The president at the outset said there will be no boots on the ground in Gaza. So the distribution efforts are being done by WFP and the UN. These groups are put a pause in place. They're doing an assessment so that they can continue their own operations. 19 million pounds is still not nothing. And I think we have to commend the donations, whether it be from countries around the world, from other aid groups, that went to that got aid to Cyprus, that has moved to the pier or to the floating pier and then onto the temporary pier into the marshalling area. That is still aid that is going to save lives. And I think our Central Command and EUCOM forces should be commended for their work on that.
And the ships that are in the Mediterranean, what would you define as their purpose? Are they capable of evacuating people should war break out in between Israel's north and Hezbollah?
Yeah, so I've seen a lot of reporting on evacuation efforts that could happen. I think it's important to remember that a capability like the ARGMU can provide and do many other things. One being a military-assisted departure, but that is not their only capability. They are there in the region to ensure regional stability, to deter aggression. And I think you have to remember, as you reported early on, you'll remember the Ford moved into the Eastern Med. I think it was dedicated October 8th. It started moving towards the Eastern Med. We also had the 26 MU in the Eastern Med and all around that it made its way through the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden. And we didn't have to do a military-assisted departure during that time. So these are capabilities. These are deployments that are pre-scheduled. and they are there in case, there is something that is needed for them. But right now they are there to ensure stability and deter. Constantine.
Thanks, Sabrina. So you just said today, and I think folks from the podium have said repeatedly, that the Gaza Pier was meant to always be additive, that it's and that the land routes are supposed to be the most efficient way to get aid in. But you're saying that the pier has, I guess, inadvertently become the second most productive entry point for aid. I mean, does the Pentagon have any thoughts on how that came to be? That this additive measure has become one of the most effective ways to get aid into the region?
I think it shows the capability of our military and being able to be incredibly efficient, and also the interagency being able to work to solicit donations to get into Cyprus and then move that through the temporary pier. And I think at the end of the day, this was a capability that, whether it be nations around the world, NGOs, other groups, that saw this is another method to get aid in to people that need it most, and they wanted to partner with the United States. I can't speak to every nation that's donated, but it's certainly meant to be additive. It's meant to be temporary. We continue to urge for those land routes to be opened. That is the most effective way to get aid in.
Right, and so I guess my follow-up to that would be, does the Pentagon not see this as a failure of getting the land routes open? That the pier is the most effective way to get aid in right now, or one of them?
The land routes not being open is certainly something that we're concerned about, and we want to see more trucks getting in every single day. And that is something that I've heard the Secretary continue to emphasize with Minister Gallant, and not just from this building, across the interagency. So that is something that we continue to urge the Israelis to open up those crossings. That is the best way in, and we're going to continue to do that. In the meantime, while that's not flowing the way it should, this is an additive measure that is going to help people, and that has helped people. Moving 19 million pounds of aid, I think, is not nothing. I think that, our forces that are doing that hard work out there, they're putting their sweat and tears into this every single day. And that is aid that's going to get to the people that need it most eventually. Lara.
Thank you. How much aid has actually gotten into Gaza, to the people of Gaza?
To Gaza? That would be something that I would let USAID and World Food Program speak to, because once it goes off from the marshalling area, it goes into different distribution centers. So from there, that's really more for WFP and the UN to speak to, and USAID.
And can you tell me, is the military preparing for an evacuation of American citizens or U.S. personnel from Lebanon?
No. Yes.
Just to follow up on the pier.
Sure.
So it seems like the U.S. military is doing a ton of work, and it's not confirmed if this has gotten to people who need it or not. Is that frustrating?
No, I mean, we understand the concerns that groups like WFP have while operating within Gaza. We certainly understand their concerns, and they're really theirs to speak to. Our priority is making sure that we are getting aid across to that pier. So when distribution starts back up, it's there, it's ready, and it can go, far and wide. And to Laura's question, it goes into these distribution centers where then it is further distributed. So I'd let WFP and really the UN speak to those efforts. But no, I don't consider this a failure. This was always meant to be an additive measure. This was always meant to be a way to help supplement aid getting in. It is not the most effective way. It is really those land routes.
And can I follow up on all these questions about J-lots and viability? Is this a decision that the United States government would make as a whole? In other words, since you've been talking about how USAID is the lead humanitarian organization, would they, along with you in support of them, be the ones that makes this decision or recommendation to continue with the pier should the staging area continue to fill up?
Yeah, this is an interagency effort. The pier wouldn't be successful without the efforts of USAID, with State Department, with others, including the WFP, other countries, NGOs. So absolutely, any decisions when it comes to the pier, of course, it's an interagency conversation that happens. The actual operations, logistics of the piers, for example, when to remove it for high sea states, that's a decision that the commander makes. But of course, like the viability, aid being able to flow off of it, we wouldn't have been able to do what we were able to do without the support of U.S. aid. So, of course, this is an interagency effort.
Can you comment on yesterday, the Inspectors General from USAID and the Pentagon launching reviews of JLOTS and the humanitarian aid delivery system?
We certainly, I can't comment on the specifics because it's the IG has launched its investigation. We're aware that it has launched an investigation or review into the pier. We certainly welcome that, not opposed to anyone looking into our efforts, because I think we do have a lot of successes to speak to. Not to mention the fact that I've already mentioned this, but I will mention it again, of getting over 19 million pounds, to the marshalling area since May 17th. So aware of it, but I just don't have more to add on that.